This is the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball YouTube channel, Coach's Corner, featuring Coach James Lewis as myself, my buddy Coach Kevin Coleman from California. We're taking a look at the Houston Rockets. We're trying to rebuild. We're trying to give a team outlook, trying to give hope for the next season. Kevin, I'm going to let you take it away and go over some of these putrid facts that exist, and hopefully, we can turn the corner for something better after James Harden demanded his trade.
Yeah, Houston, man, tough sledding over there in Houston. They were pretty bad last year, 17-55. I can't put that all on just what was going on because Stephen Silas is the head coach. We'll get into that in a minute, but trading James Harden, it must have been a mess. The chemistry was off. As soon as you get rid of an all-star player like that, then your system is messed up. The roster is messed up, which we'll talk about. Like this is a full rebuild. Like this thing is massive. And I think they could have got more for Harden. We'll get into that. But right now, they went 17-55 last year. Points per game, they're 24th in the league. Opponent points per game, they were awful on the defensive side. 27th out of 30. Offensive rating was bad. Defensive rating was bad. Like, if we could sum up one thing about the Houston Rockets this year is that they were bad, like just plain awful bad.
Yeah, and they lost 20 straight games. Stephen Silas was, beside himself during that entire period. They finished the season 6-45, and one of those wins was against the Clippers at the end of the season when they gave them a win. So you're basically looking at 5 wins in 50 games. They were the worst team in the NBA at a certain point, and 27th in offensive and defensive efficiency. I don't know if I've ever seen such terrible stats. You could make an argument this is the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah, and God, they were bad. I mean, when you're looking at it just perspective wise, like, and the big thing is they were in a kind of a no-win situation. They have Russell Westbrook. They're trying to make Harden happy, and he's never happy unless he's at a strip club in Atlanta. So like, you're really struggling with like what's going on here. And then you got the front office here. The jury's still out on their owner. Tillman Fertitta, he's kind of the hands-on guy, like, and he really likes to get involved. And I'm old, coach is old. Like anytime we see owners that really like to get involved, I feel like, and especially like front office stuff. I mean, Mark Cuban's involved, but I don't know how much front office he is. Like Tillman is really in there. And we've seen kind of a turnover here. They have Rafael Stone. He took over for Daryl Morey. We all know Morey. He's a great general manager. He did what he needed to do in Houston. He's look what he's doing in Philadelphia. So Rafael Stone's came in, and the jury's still out on a lot of these guys. Coaching staff, I think, is the same way. Stephen Silas is there. The assistants, I mean, Jeff Hornacek, man, my guy. I cannot.
What a group of characters here. Desagna Shop, Jeff Hornacek, and John Lucas. It just seems like this would be an interesting room to be in.
Hey, hasn't John Lucas played or coached every team in the NBA? Like, I feel like John Lucas has just been around. Like, I know he does those camps and everything. It's so funny.
His son's played in the NBA. He was the former number one overall pick. He's an NBA basketball lifer for sure.
Yeah, that dude don't leave a gym. Now, when we're talking about like, okay, let's look at their salary cap real quick. The projection for 2021 is 112. Right now, it's about $99 million committed for them. If they get rid of Avery Bradley's kind of contract, which is the team option, they could actually have about $20 million in cap space. So that's good. So when we're talking about now, their cap is weird. When you're looking at what they paid guys, they're paying John Wall $47 million in the next 2 years. They have Eric Gordon still on the roster.
Worst contract in basketball, by the way. You can't hide it from that one.
Yeah, we're gonna get into John Wall, see what he's gonna do. We got Eric Gordon. To be honest, I totally forgot he was on the Rockets. Kinda, just kidding, but it was crazy. Like they're gonna be paying him $20 million in 2023, and he's 32. Like that's a contract there. I think Christian Wood's got a pretty good contract, but after that, like those 3 guys have that. After that, it's pretty open. So they do have some maneuverability. So they've done a pretty good job with their salary cap. They have some trade exceptions there. Austin Rivers trade exception, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, all those different guys there. They have some trade exceptions as well. Free agents coming up, Kelly Olynyk, Dante Exum, which, man, that was a blast from the past. Remember when Dante Exum was supposed to be that dude, and then he's sitting here as an expired. Avery Bradley's there, all these different guys. So if you look at their roster, look at their free agent, their cap holds, what they have. I mean, to be honest, they're not in a terrible position. The worst thing is they have John Wall on that contract on the books. So to me, is if you're going to have to keep him, you're going to be looking at a rebuild that's going to last till 2023. Like 2023 should be the year that they say, okay, we have now tons of maneuverability, hopefully hit on these draft picks, and now we get to reload and go. I think you can still trade John Wall's contract. You don't think so, but I do. I think that there's a team out there stupid enough to trade for him. But Eric Gordon's a guy you're going to have to try to get rid of to a contender, which I think you can. I don't think that contract is unmovable.
I also think that he plays a big role in maybe some of these 3-team deals if they're really trying to make moves as far as moving up in the draft. They've talked about moving up to number 1. They love Cade Cunningham. He's a hometown kid from Texas, and it's kind of thrown out there that Eric Gordon might be a piece of this puzzle, or Avery Bradley, who could be a role player on a contending team. His team option is 5.9, so that's actually a good contract, and it's easy to be moved and some package some of those things and maybe move up to the 1 spot, because Detroit has not come out and said we're getting Cade Cunningham. And sometimes you see that at the number 1 pick. Obviously, you want to hold on to that type of information, but I don't know if Detroit is completely sold on Cade, or they like some of these other options. And there are 4 guys that are incredible.
I will say Avery Bradley is one of the most overrated basketball players in his career. Like Boston, like he never really panned out. Like, so I just want to throw that out there. I don't know why I'm throwing shade at Avery Bradley. I'm sorry if you're watching this, Avery Bradley, but I feel like he's always been overpaid for what he actually performs on the court.
Wow. I guess I agree to disagree on that. I love Avery Bradley. I think that it's just been injury riddled, but his defensive ability and then his ability to develop that 3-point line. There's few guards that are as good as him with his hands and staying in front of other guards, and he's tough. So I disagree, but at the same time, I agree with the fact that because he's not on the court, I could easily see that argument. It's kind of like Eric Gordon. When Eric Gordon plays, he's a bucket, but it's hard for him to stay on the court, but that's why he got that contract.
Yeah.
So let's take a little look at their lineup here. And you have 9 guys returning. I broke it down to kind of your rotational players, your kind of key players. Gordon, he split time with starting and coming off the bench, and based on what they do in the off season, maybe they get Jalen Green, and Jalen Green comes off the bench and he figures out, how to follow Gordon, or they just start him, throw him in there. They're in a complete rebuild. If they get Jalen Green, that kid should start. Kevin Porter Jr. came on very strong. We will talk about him. He's 21 years old, and he just rose to the top. And they got him off of a 2nd-round pick from a frustrated Cleveland Cavaliers team, and looked like they got a steal there. And then our bench guys, but they are all contributors. DJ Augustine is on contract. Avery Bradley, as we talked about, is a team option, and we can see him getting moved. Jayshawn Tate was on the all-rookie teams, but he is 25, so he is a little bit more seasoned than most players. He plays a big role. He contributes offensively, defensively, all sides of it, much like Daniel House. And we all know he is the bubble disaster. You can look into that story if you want to, but Daniel House it's kind of looking to find his spot again. And then Kmart Jr. was the 57th pick overall, and he just looks like a steal. They got him on contract for like 4 years on less than $2 million a year. He gets blocks, he gets steals. He's very electric. So he's a good little piece of the puzzle. We talked about Tate here. All rookie team, 51%. He guards some of the best players on the other team. He can rebound a little bit, play make. He's kind of like the just new age type of guy in the NBA that can find a rotational role, much like Daniel House, who we'll see if he can just try to make a comeback. But your building blocks are Christian Wood. Don't be a casual if you don't know about this kid. He's 20 and 10. He gets you a block game. He can really shoot the 3, and he's just a gamer. Like, you get the ball in his hands and he makes plays. He makes things happen for his team, and I think he's a great piece of the puzzle going forward, because you can put him at the 5 and you could possibly put him at the 4. We look at Kevin Porter Jr., who I don't know if you want to roll that tape, Kev. Kevin Porter Jr. came on the scene. He had a 50-point game towards the end of the season, and the number that stands out to me is this 6.3 assists. He became a playmaking guard. It's incredible what he can do with the ball in his hands. Eric Gordon, we talked about him, but he didn't play too much, 18 a game. And these are your role players that you got going forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this. Oh, go ahead. Go with John Wall.
I was going to say, but the one guy we really do have to watch here is John Wall. He played well when he did play. The shooting percentage obviously is an eyesore, looking at 40%. He's shooting 6 threes a game more than he ever has at 32%, which is just a little bit below that 33%, which is like okay, acceptable. The people are still going to go underneath him, but defensively, he still has his capabilities. He still gets blocked. He's one of the best. He's one of the greatest blocking point guards of all time. He gets his hands on steals, and his assists actually went down a lot last year. I got 7 a game, but for him, he's more of a 10 a gamer. So he was definitely unloading it, knowing that he was kind of playing on a losing team. Also, he came in there thinking he could probably work out a relationship with James Harden. James just kind of didn't even pick up the phone. And yeah, I kind of feel bad for him at being a Wizards fan and just knowing the type of guy he is. I'm hopeful for him going forward, but yeah, the injuries have really hit him bad.
Yeah, my favorite story, real quick, before we throw on the Kevin Porter film, I do want to talk about Christian Wood. My favorite story is draft night when he didn't get drafted and his girlfriend left him at the airport. He never saw her again. And he's like, oh, that was a $45 million mistake because she left him there. And so shout out to my boy Christian Wood. You're my guy. I'm glad that you're here. The thing about Porter is, it's hard. Like, I like Porter, but the thing is like, is he a good player playing on a very bad team, or is he just an average player that's having his stats kind of put up? I think that he did pretty well last year from what we saw.
That's a good point.
He's a good shooter. It's just like, the volume, is he going to get that volume in other teams? Like, obviously it was good for his development that he got this playing time. And I like that. And I think that's good. Now, can he contribute on a team that is competing and has other guys around him? I think that's the thing that we have to look at the most with Porter. I like him, though. I think that he came on. He's a good story, getting his new start in Houston. I think that's the thing. It's like these kids are getting a new start. But when you're playing on these bad teams, we've seen it, Coach. We've been watching the NBA a long time. Like these kids that play on these bad teams, they develop bad habits, and then they just want to score and do these things that they're doing. As you're rebuilding, sometimes those kids are the ones that you can't keep on your roster because they fall in those bad habits that they built as they went through these bad teams.
He's a smooth player, a lefty. He's really good isolation player. He works out with Chris Brinkley in the offseason all the time, and he just raves about his offensive scoring ability from coming into the draft. And yes, there was immaturity problems. The whole locker room situation in Cleveland blew up in the face. But Stephen Silas, I think this was probably his crown jewel of the season, that he empowered this kid to give you productive time and to see him change a position. He goes from small forward to point guard because of need, and that just, even if that just really helped develop his playmaking ability, that's nice for Stephen Silas. And he came from Dallas with the #1 offensive efficiency rated team of all time, and they say he was kind of like the assistant coach behind that. So let's see if they can move that 27 number up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's key. I think Silas is a good coach for this. Like, I don't think he wanted to – see, the thing I feel bad about Stephen Silas coming in, he thought he was going to have Harden and a team. And then all of a sudden they're gone now. Now he had to kind of shift. So I saw that frustration. I think he's learning, and, hey, this is my chance. You only get – there's only so many opportunities coaching the NBA. So I do like him, like you mentioned. And you see the stats there, 16 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. Now, the big question mark for us before we get into the draft stuff is what the hell are we going to do with John Wall? And I think that's the question mark that we all have. He had some bounce last year, and he didn't look terrible. Like Coach pointed out before show, he didn't play the whole season, but he did show something, right? It's not vintage John Wall. Like, it's not old school, Washington Wizards, your boy, like John Wall. But he did have some bounce. And what we've seen, I think a good example of, look at what Derrick Rose has been able to become. Like, that kind of, come back from injuries. Nothing going to be now. Is that $44 million worth? No, but that's not anything that he can do about it. That's the contract he has. So I thought he did pretty well last year. He had that bounce back from his injury. And I think he's a very serviceable player. I don't think he's going to be necessarily an all-star again, but he's a very serviceable, if he can stay healthy, point guard on the team, scoring first guy, and someone who can kind of contribute to a team. So what I did is, right now going around all NBA circles is trades for John Wall. And so I found a bunch that have been either liked by John Wall on Twitter, which I think is hilarious that he likes some of these. And then also some guys out there, some analysts of hey, this is where, this is what we're looking at a team. So I'm going to have Coach look at these, and I want him to tell me what he thinks about them. So here's the first one. This one actually got liked by John Wall. John Wall to the Clippers for Serge Ibaka, who has a player option, so he's got to accept that player option. Patrick Beverley, and then my boy Luke Kennard, who, man, he's getting paid. So good for you, Luke. Coach, what do you think about this deal?
I think this is of the three that we're going to look at. This is the one that I like the most. The Clippers point guard position. I know Reggie Jackson played very well in the playoffs. I think he's set to get a certain number in free agency that the Clippers probably won't retain him, but he also wasn't as consistent all year round. I think the Pat Bev, we got to get Pat Bev out of LA, and he can go be annoying on another team. The Luke Kennard contract, like you talked about, is pretty bad. It's $60 million, and I think there was a confidence thing. He played with a team that was like rough, and I don't think he could just hang with those type of personalities, and his confidence just hit the floor. Serge played well at the beginning of the season when he wasn't hurt in that starting lineup, but I mean, you can't rely on him. I think, man, you roll the dice on John, especially if you can get Kawhi to come back. That is the biggest question for the Clippers. But you throw out John Wall, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard. I like that fit too. John Wall is a dimer supreme, and I think that he kind of could settle into that role. He could get some points in the fast break with some of the complementary parts, and then when we're in the half court, you go to PG, you go to the Kawhi. That could be a tipping point, and I would love to see him with that. I actually hate the Clippers, but if they get John Wall, I definitely changes my mindset on me, liking them or not.
Well, am I crazy to think like the Rockets should get more? Like I don't like I don't know. Like I don't like what the Rockets are getting here.
All right. So the Kennard contract's bad, but it's way less than 47 for the next year. They're opening books. Ibaka and Beverly are on 1-year deals, and so that's why I like that, especially going forward. And I think I like the Ibaka and Wood fit. I know that they're probably not making they're definitely not going to make the playoffs next year, but I like it. You get the contract off, and obviously the Clippers are going all the way in, and you would have to have a lot of subpar contracts. But you see, the Clippers have been able to get a lot of players for the low, like Cousins and some of these other guys, because they see that appeal that they have a chance to win a championship. Maybe getting those veterans. I don't know.
No, that's fair. Let's take a look at a couple more. NBA trade machine here. So this is between the Rockets and the Pelicans. So the Pelicans get Wall and Tate. And we've talked about the Pelicans before on this show that they need a point guard. Like we said, hey, they need a point guard. So not a terrible fit. And then they'd have Zion and Brandon Ingram. And then the Rockets get Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe, and then Alexander Walker. What do you think about this deal?
All right, so I love Nickeil Alexander-Walker going forward. He's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's cousin. The kid got some good ISO game. We saw him play pretty well down the stretch for New Orleans. Eric Bledsoe, we kind of figure out that he's not the greatest winning player. Of course, he's still a transitional piece, perhaps. I like Steven Adams' fit. 1 year contract. You guys 29, and you kind of shed that. I don't see why the Pelicans bring in John Wall with Zion. I just don't see this one going through. I like Tatum's complimentary piece, but why would the Pelicans do this? Don't bring in John Wall. You don't build somewhere else around Zion.
Okay, no, that's fair. I don't really like what either side's getting, to be honest. Like, I don't mind the point guard part, but the contract doesn't make sense for the Pelicans. The Rockets on the other end, I mean, you get an expiring deal. I don't want Eric Bledsoe's contract though. Like, that's not one I want to put on my books, no matter what. All right, let's take a look at this one because this one's fun. So Dallas Mavericks, they get John Wall and Christian Wood, so your boy, and for Porzingis, Richardson, and Nicolo Melli. I pronounced that wrong, but what do you think about this one?
I think you got it. I think you got Melli.
Nice.
Yeah, what do I think about it is no to why I don't want Porzingis in Dallas. I'm like I probably don't want John. I like Brunson's fit with Doncic. I think that they can go in other directions there. They do have to make a decision on Tim Hardaway Jr. being a free agent. Dallas does, but I mean Christian Wood though. I like that might be the piece where like okay I make this move. But you are accepting a John Wall contract that is huge. Do I think he can play with Doncic a little bit? But I don't like that fit really, especially with him not being a good 3-point shooter. I don't know who wants Porzingis right now, based on his performance in the playoffs. But I mean, the kid is still 7'3" and can hit the three.
Not Luka, that's for sure. All right, last one. Let's see how I did here. 3-team trade. So Houston will get Ben Simmons and Miles Turner. Indiana Pacers get Wall, Clark, and Kevin Porter Jr. And then Philadelphia Sixers get Brogdon and Kelly Olynyk. Now, Olynyk is going to be coming up a free agent. Maybe they figured out a sign and trade type thing. What do you think about this one?
I first look at Philly, and I love Malcolm Brogdon. He's a winning player, and if I'm on any winning team, I want Malcolm Brogdon because he can play the 1 and the 2, and he competes on both ends, and he's a high efficiency player. I think he's been a 50, 40, 90 player before, or he's been very, very close to that. And Kelly had a resurgence there, and I think he would be a good compliment with Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons, you got someone to build on for the future for the Rockets. So, dude, do it. And then Miles Turner. And Miles Turner looks like a good fit with Wood since he's a good defender and he can hit the three a little bit too. Pacers, they're in limbo. Maybe they're in love with Kevin Porter Jr. and that's the reason why they make this trade. But otherwise, I don't see why you give up Brogdon and Turner unless they're gonna go complete rebuild. They've always been middle of the pack guys, and they always seem to get in the playoffs. So. That would kind of be walking away from it, but maybe they see something in Kevin Porter Jr. No, I mean, that's still a playoff team. You got Wall, Porter Jr., and you got Sabonis, but I guess, I actually like this one. In the fantasy world.
Yeah. Oh, the fantasy world. Yeah, I do too. I think Simmons a guy could build around for Houston. It's funny. They could have had Simmons, the Rockets, when they had Harden. They could have traded him for Simmons, and they went to the Nets. So I think it's kind of funny how that kind of has worked out now. But I think the one thing to point out about the trades with Wall is that with that contract, it's gonna be hard to move him. Like you might have to add a piece. You might not, like you talked about, be able to move him. I like the Clippers deal at the beginning, but I don't know if Houston wanted to do that right away. But anyway, let's get into the draft because that's why we're here. That's what we're talking about. NBA draft, they have the number 2 pick, the number 23 pick from Portland Trailblazers for Robert Covington. That's actually looked out to be a very good deal. And then the number 24 pick from Milwaukee for PJ Tucker. They had to give up their number 31 to the Bucks. So that's what they have for the draft. So, Coach, let's go through some options of guys that you think. We have some film on some of these guys, some prospects of who they're going to go because it's interesting. This number 2 pick is going to be interesting. I think it's a slam dunk easy, but, that's me.
Yeah, I mean, you see our graphic here. Jalen Green, that is the guy. And honestly, for someone to replace a James Harden, this guy feels the part. I think Cade Cunningham is going number 1. They mentioned earlier they're trying to move up to try to get him. I think he would be a perfect person to build around, but that's hard. That's a hard ask, and I don't know if Detroit is going to budge. They're not really giving out any inklings. We just mentioned Jalen Green, although this is a position that they're heavy at. They have guards. They only have one big man on the entire roster, and maybe that makes them think, hey, we're going to build with Mobley, and we actually do believe in John Wall, and we'll have a Mobley and Wood pairing, which is interesting idea. And maybe their secret weapon. They're like, we love Jalen Suggs. That means we got to get rid of John Wall because that's exactly they play the same exact style as far as body fit and position on the basketball court. So I would lean towards Jalen Green. Let's hope that we see that. I know you can share your opinion on the kid and why you think that would be a good fit for Houston to build on.
Oh, I will. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's look at his film. I mean, hey, he's just gonna be a scorer. Like we've seen this film before, but I just don't see how you can look at what his G League stats were. He almost averaged 18 points against grown ass men. And then he goes out and he just is a baller. And they looked at him down the stretch, right? Like when you watch those games, he was the guy. They gave him the ball. He's super athletic when he scores. Like if you put him on Houston's team, then you automatically, I think he can average 22 a game right away. Like he's that type of a scorer. And you look at what Kevin Porter had done. Like Jalen Green's much more talented. Sorry out there, Porter Jr. stands. But like the fact that he could do that, attack. I love his offensive ability. His shooting has improved. He's definitely got to do that, as I've talked about. But this kid he looks just like an NBA player. Like he's as surefire as a prospect as I've seen in a long time. Like I really have less question marks about him than I do about Cade. Like as far as upside goes, like I think that he can become a superstar in that team. If you want to rebuild, that's your dude. Like I feel like that's the way to go. I think he fits in perfectly with that roster, to be honest. Like, hey, here we go. Now we have him. Let's kind of work it out. If you do keep Wall, so let's say they do keep Wall. So now you have John Wall, you're gonna have Porter, then you have Jalen Green right there as your 3. and then you have Christian Wood, and you just kind of fill in as you go. It's not a bad starting five. Like, that's not like a terrible, like, option there. So I think Jalen's the pick. I don't understand why they try to move up, because the best players that are going to be sitting at 2 for them. I know you're a Cade stan, so I get it, but I do think Jalen. I think Jalen's the best player in this draft. I'm gonna die on that hill in this thing. So why give up assets when you can draft the best player at the second pick? Now, I do want to hear your opinion on Mobley, so I'll throw up the film for him. If, let's say, they do take Mobley, they fall in love with him, how does he fit with Christian Wood? Like, that's my only concern. Do you think they fit together?
I do. It's because of his defensive prowess. I haven't seen a big guy with offensive ability this good since Anthony Davis. I don't think he's Anthony Davis good, but he won Defensive Player of the Year. He averaged 3 blocks in a couple steals again. Like, he is all over the court. He even stretches out to the 3-point line. He catches lobs. I think he could be a complementary player to Christian Wood, who can hit the 3. And that could be the new Houston Rockets twin towers. That they've tried that in the past. Of course, we talked about the depth or a lack of depth at that position, so they could see that as a positional fit. I love his ability, his little hook, left and right hand. He's got really nice touch, and I think that he looks like he doesn't really compete. But watching the games, the kid is a competitor. He puts his nose in there. Obviously, his build is a little frail. He's 210 at 7 foot, but he's super long, and his lateral ability to move side to side and go north and south, I love it. And long arms, I think that's a good fit. I could see why Houston would fall in love with this player. Jalen Green, to me as a fan, I would think that was the most exciting basketball. I would love to see what he would look like in my uniform if I'm a fan. But I could see them falling in love with Mobley, and who knows? They might be trading around. They might move to the top 4 picks. They might really fall in love with someone and give up an asset going forward. So you could see those things. So that's my opinion. I mean, look at those numbers. I mean, he was their player of the year. He was the freshman of the year, defensive player of the year. He took his team to Elite 8, overachieved. He looks like a winning player.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, he's one of my most intriguing prospects. Like, I like him a lot. I just don't know about the fit with him. Like, you need guards and you need wings in this league. I just don't see why you would pass up on a guy like Jalen Green for Mobley. If you fall in love with him, you fall in love with him. I get it. And I understand, hey, if that's your guy, you're going to go there. But with Wood being there, I think they could make a pairing, but you still have problems with your backcourt there. I mean, you still got to have problems with Wall. You're still going to have problems with Gordon, Porter, all those guys. Like, who is going to be the guy they build around? The one kid that I think they could fall in love with, which is weird because I'm not a big Jalen Suggs guy. I like him, but I just don't see him at the 2 spot. I really think they could maybe fall in love with like his ability. 6'4", 205. He did well in college. We saw him in the tournament. His buzzer beater shot that he had. I know you like Suggs. I do too. Him. I think he kind of fits what they need, kind of, right? Like
if you can find a suitor for John, then
if you get a suitor for John. But I do think, like, when we're talking about transcendental stars, like, can he basically up the franchise, put him on his shoulders? I don't know. Maybe. I think Jalen's more that guy for me, but I do think that he fits a need for them, having that guard, like we're going to be talking about here in a minute, like what they're looking for, kind of where they're at. For me, when we talked about this, which I'll put it up here in a second, is they need a primary ball handler. Like, that is number 1 for me when I watch their team. Like, Wall is fine, but he's a scorer and he's going to go there. Like, they need someone to step in, handle the ball, control the team. I think they lacked an identity on offense because it was more like, hey, all right, it's your turn. Okay, it's your turn. When you watch Houston, it was a lot of my guys, my guys, my guys. All right, I'm going to go get this bucket right now. Like, they need someone to kind of fill that gap. Suggs could be that kid stepping in. Hey, and he's mature and he can play, man. And he's fun to watch. So I do like what he brings to the court. It'd be interesting. Defensively, he's good. Like, I just think that's a safe floor pick, right? Like, I think he's going to be a rotational guy. He'll be probably a starter. Can he be a transitional star? Like, hey, man, this guy's going to be there. I don't know yet. We've seen him here. He can finish. He can do those type of things. And when I talked about like what they needed in the draft, primary ball handler, front court help, and talent, right? And he fits 2 of those needs to me. Hey, he fits those needs. He's there. Hey, can he be these guys? And that's where I see him. Now, I do know that, Coach is a degenerate of basketball knowledge. So he has some guys that he likes for the other picks. So what picks are you looking at later? So like we talked about, they have the 23 and 24.
And just touch on Jalen real quick. Suggs,
Yeah.
that is. I love him. I just can see him in a Raptors uniform. I love that position. I think they stick and he lands there. I just think that Mobley and Green just have a little bit of a higher rating. But to your point, there are teams that are falling in love with him and have him maybe even at their number one spot. There's probably a team or two that have that. Now they have picks number 22 and 23, and we looked at they need talent, they need bigs, but you can't go wrong with playmaking guards. So one guy that I'm looking in particular, and we talked about this on Coach's Corner in the past, is we love the fit of Ayo Dosunmu in Houston. He's long. These numbers, I mean, you can't make them up. That's 26-5, and he improved his points per game and assist tally every single season in his college career. And he comes in ready to play. He's a fierce competitor. He plays both ends. If I have a pick at 22, 23, he's on the board, I'm using one of them for him. So give me Ayo. We talked about the Bulldog, Jaden Springer. I think this guy is a certified, solid backup point guard going forward, and his defensive ability he's so hands-on. He's so aggressive. His offense ability, as far as his ball handling, all that definitely needs to improve. But he was just a freshman this past year, so he has room to grow. Ayo's a little bit more seasoned. And I just see him fitting with Porter Jr., with Gordon. I think he can fit in with all those lineups, whereas Jaden might be a little bit more of a struggle. Jared Butler that led Baylor is another option, although I think on the boards you see Dosunmu and Springer a little bit higher. And then Trey Boy, as I call him, Trey Man, he just looks like a kid. He's got talent, and if you want to think about maybe rolling dice for a kid that potentially could be a good scorer going forward, this guy, Trey Murphy, is stealing all of the hearts of NBA combat. He goes from second round, he's all the way up to mid 20s, maybe even before. He is your prototypical 3-and-D. He's grown a lot. He came in as a guard for Rice University, and this past year played for Virginia. And against some elite competition in ACC, he was guarding the best player on the other team. And look at that, 43.3 from three, 93 from the line, 50 overall. This is your typical 3-and-D. He's long, and he gets after it defensively. He's to me a safe pick. He's your Saddiq Bey of this year. Maybe not quite as good as CD Bey, but very comparable. Hey, swing for the fence. Get the kid from Turkey, Sengun. I might have messed that up, but this kid, he is just a bucket getter. 19-9, 65%. He is all over the place. And then look at that, Blake blocks some shots, steals. I don't know if that's going to transition to NBA. When Europeans come over, you never know how that's going to fit. But I looked at the highlight tape, I love him a lot more than Garuba from Spain. He does not impress me too much. So I think that with one of those picks, you can take a gamble here. But if it's me, give me Murphy, number 3, and give me Ayo Dosunmu for the 22 and 23 pick. And I feel like a great JM if I can get both of those picks.
Yeah, no, I like those picks. I think let's look at Ayo real quick because we do have some film on him. I think this is a slam dunk pick for them. If he's there, if you can get Jalen plus him, dude, I mean, this is where we talk about how you rebuild. If you can get Jalen, have that scorer, have that guy that's transitional, then you get a guard like Ayo who's older but has that ability to kind of separate himself. He can maybe improve that 3-point shot. He can score. He can kind of be a facilitator, as we saw his assist numbers in college. And then you can get rid of, let's say you do get rid of John Wall, you're able to move him. Now you have two very, very great. I mean, imagine him, Porter, Wood, and Jalen Green.
Now, and at the end of the day, John Wall, yes, it's only 2 years. So you maybe have to just live on that island for 2 years. But if you develop these players behind him, and then they're really ready in a couple years from now, this team could be very exciting.
I think that's a lock. I feel like if he's there, if the Rockets don't take him, I'd be very surprised. Just because I just think that he has the skill set that they need. He's there. He has that ability. He's being there. I do like a couple other guys, too, I wanted to bring up. I know that when you watch Ayo here, everybody that's watching, you'll see that he has that ability to kind of separate himself for the Rockets. I do like Jaden Springer. I don't know. I think that he fits them. So if they can do back-to-back picks, so let's say they take Ayo, they have Jalen. Now they get a guy like Springer who can basically do everything, kind of do it all. I do think they need a 3-and-D guy. They need someone like that. So for me, like you were right on the money there. Unfortunately, you were kind of right. I don't like to give you too much credit there, but they do need someone like that. Another guy is like Joshua Primo from Alabama. I know we don't have to put him up there, but I like him. I think maybe that would fit pretty well. I do not want Garuba. Like I watched his tape and he does not pop for me at all. Like I'm staying the hell away from that guy. Like I don't know why he's getting first round buzz. Like
I don't get somebody on the internet tell us why, because we just don't see it. He's played for Real Madrid the last 4 years and he hasn't averaged more than 5 points a game. I don't get it. Like I feel like eventually like you get placed into that role. I know you're playing on a good team in Europe, but I don't see this potential. Maybe we see it in the Olympics. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to go big, your kid from Turkey, I like. Even like, you know what? Even like Charles Bassey from, Western Kentucky. Like guys like that, like, okay, maybe you take a shot. It's a little bit of a reach. But no, I think Ayo's the pick. Like I would love Jalen Ayo Jaden. Dude, that'd be money. So Houston, come grab us. I do like Bassey though. Like he could be an interesting pick. He could fill and make that role. He rebounds well. Maybe him and Wood would be able to fit together.
And he's gotten better at every year, but he's kind of that throwback big where, he's not a stretch. He's a bruiser in between. Those guys are harder to come by because they're in such complete rebuild. I would go with the kid from Turkey, but you see these are similar stats. They kind of are both, prominent post players. And, I think they're safer picks than Garuba. But I know you wanted to address free agency because you wanted to draft a bunch of guards in the draft. But like again, we talked about their team needs is that they don't have any front court help, and so I think that you're going to try to address that in our free agency targets.
Yeah, so you may listen. They have some cap room, and I do want to go over really quick their pick swaps. They have a ton of. I'm not going to go over every single one here, but just know they have a ton of draft capital. You can pause the video if you're watching it and just look at it. They're owed a lot of first rounders. A lot of it's protected. They're going to see a lot of different things there. Again, this just keeps going. I had to make 3 different slides for this just to show you how much draft capital they have. They have a ton of picks out there from Brooklyn, from the James Harden deal. Even, they owe some deals. They owe a first rounder every once in a while. Expect 2024. So I really feel like they need to get by 2024. They got to get that rebuild. And so you'll just see these tons of pick swaps there. So that's kind of the deal there. Like they're going to have to address that. Now, some targets really quick. You probably know this kid, but Washington kid. I wanted to start off slow and then kind of work our way up here. What is your problem with Bonga? Is that how you say his last name? Isaac Bonga?
Yeah.
Isaac Bonga. I like him. Like he's okay. Like he would kind of help with that 3-4 area.
He's not. He shouldn't be an NBA player.
Oh God!
I'm sorry. I'm gonna trash your first one. I like your other two a little bit more, but Bonga, like he had the potential. I mean, look at that, 2 points per game. You're playing for DC, who had just a train wreck of injuries and COVID situations where you had opportunities. You had an opportunity to start that training camp. They said like it's open, it's an open position, and he could have got it. And then Denny Avdia outplayed him. He like what is okay about Bonga. He's long. He shows some kinds of defensive abilities. He just doesn't have much offensively. And look, he's 180, weighs the same as me, and he's 6'8". I'll pass on Bonga going forward.
All right. Well, I just giving an option out here, guys. Like, not a lot of guys are gonna want to go to Houston right away. So, like, I want to kind of put out somebody maybe they can fill. Maybe he'll develop there. The next guy I really like, Lauri Markkanen from the. I love Lauri. Like, I've liked him ever since he came into the league. He's 7 foot 240, so he's gonna fill that role. 2020 stats last year: 13 points, 4 and 9, and 0.9 assists. I think he. Chicago hasn't done a great job around him. I feel like that he needs a new place to go. Now, he is a restricted free agent, but like we talked about, the Rockets have money, so they'd have to match it. Will they match it with where the Bulls' direction is going? I don't know. But he does have that ability. I like him. He can shoot. He can kind of fit around Christian Wood. And the one question mark I have about him is rebounding-wise, he's not going to fill that need that they need for the rebounding portion of their teams. So I do see like that question mark. I understand that. But this wouldn't be a bad maybe go get him. Maybe he'll develop, and you can kind of fit around him. What do you think about Lauri?
I think he's intriguing. I don't know what his number is going to ask for being a restricted free agent. That rookie campaign, he had a stretch where he looked like, oh, this is this is our next big stretch shooter. I mean, the kid can really shoot the ball. I think it would be a perfect fit with like the Bucks or something like that. I mean, I just kind of see a little bit of Lopez in him, maybe because he just is a terrible rebounder. But he, to me, to fit with Wood, I don't know if that gives you enough interior toughness. I do like him for a certain team, but I don't know the number, and I would try to move on from him, or at least Houston thinking about him. But there's got to be a place for this kid. But I would try to get the next guy that you're bringing up.
Give me the next guy. No, I think he'd fit there. He'd do those things. I think the Spurs maybe be a better spot for him. But let's swing for the fences, coach. John Collins, 6'9", 235, 2020 stats, 17-7-1. Atlanta didn't want to pay him, and so he's going to go to free agents. Someone's going to pony up that money, and they're going to offer him a contract here. I think, hey, you know what? I think they could do it. I know the Mavericks and Heat have been on him. I think the Spurs have shown interest. But you know what? I think one sleeper team could be Houston, because I think one thing that Collins wants, he wants money. I don't think necessarily winning is that big of a deal to him. Like he said, hey, he wants to get paid. If he goes here, fits with Wood, he gets his money. They could go after him. I actually really like this fit. What do you think about this fit?
I do. This is my target. If I have a free agent target for Houston, this is what I'm kind of putting all my chips in. And who knows? I guess we'll see on the number that he kind of accepts. He's restricted, so whoever puts the money out there, the Hawks do have to match, and they spent so much money last season on Bogdanovich and on Gallo. He is that guy that has the relationship with Trae Young. Like that seems like they have a really, really good bond. And he had some really good moments in this playoffs. It's going to be hard for Atlanta to move on, but they might just be financially too tight to be able to handle a guy that's 18-7 and had an even better year this season before. He banked on himself to not extend that. I think it was 80 to 90 million and on a 4-year deal that he turned down. I like him in Houston. He's boingy. I feel like he fits that new look. You get him with Green, and he could be a fit with Wood. I mean, he can shoot the three. They wouldn't be the greatest defensive front court, but you want to see what that pairing looks like with Christian Wood. And I would try to get a guy like John Collins. I mean, he's ready to play right now. So
it's a lot of fun. Like you put in Jalen Green in there, you get your 2 draft picks, you get Christian Wood and John Collins. You're like, wow, like at least, they're going to be put on points and you're going to have some fun watching them play basketball. And I think that's the way, and you got to swing for the fences on this, right? Or if you don't do that, if you don't swing for the fences, you can do those poison pill contracts where it's hard for the Atlanta to match them. And I think they're going to be a little bit cash strapped. And I wouldn't mind doing that. Like that's the way you kind of do it. If you don't go for these guys and these restricted free agents like this, then you get stuck with like the Kings, like my program. Like there's nothing that they can do because they don't think outside the box. They get stuck in middling teams and you do not want to be there. So I know Houston wants to go for it. Their owner wants to win. And so this would be a hell of a grab for them. And could you imagine if they got him plus their draft picks that they have? And then we're talking about Houston. Man, they can play a little bit. Like maybe they don't got to move Wall now. Maybe they can just say, let's try to compete in the West after 2 years. Wall's out, contract's gone, and we can go after some other guys. So I think Houston is to be honest, I think Houston's in kind of a better spot than the Pistons are because I think they have a little bit more talent on that roster. But since we did the Pistons last, I do think Houston has some maneuverability that they can move around a little bit.
The only part that I disagree with is Detroit has the chance to get Cade.
Yeah, whatever.
So that's why I lean that way. But I hear
whatever.
They have some more talent. They have some guys that are ready to play like right now that can contribute. And so they have more pieces around the puzzle as Detroit has some younger guys, and then they got Jeremy Grant. You just see a little bit more players and flexibility with the lineup. Just to go over one last time. You got John Wall, who's on contract for a couple of years. Eric Gordon, who's here till he's 36. Kevin Porter Jr., a bright young star on a good contract. Christian Wood on a solid deal, even though he got 13, 14 next 2 years. It looks like that was a great move at 25 years old. Augustine, he can come and go. Avery Bradley, we can see him probably get moved. Jae'Sean Tate is a 25-year-old player on a young contract that has promise. Daniel House, we'll see. And then Kenyon Martin is on contract for 3 years, and he's a high flyer. So, I mean, you do have some excitement here.
Yeah, no, I think this team is going to be interesting. It's really up to, when you're looking at what Stephen Silas can develop. And you know what? It's up to, Rafael Stone. What can he do general manager-wise and go there? So Hey, you know what? I appreciate this. This is a lot of fun series here that we have here. Let us know in the comment section what you think. Like, hey, what do you think with the Rockets? Do you think they should go Jalen Green? Do you think that maybe they'll go Mobley or move up to the first? Hit that subscribe button, that like button, and me and Coach really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Tell me what your team is, and we want to break them down too. We don't want to just hit the top of the draft. We eventually want to touch on all of these teams. So thank you again. This is Coach's Corner, AAA Fantasy Basketball, and we'll see you.